Welcome back to the France 24 debate. The state of the suburbs. Is Paris at its Ferguson moment? This debate, of course, comes against the background of violence in the French capital, or rather on its northern outskirts over this weekend. Well, let's talk about the incident in Ferguson, Missouri, where a young black man was shot dead by a white police officer in August 2014. That led to an explosion of protests across the United States. So is France now at a similar stage? The attack on Théo here in Aulnay-sous-Bois, north of Paris, on February the 2nd, leaving him needing surgery to repair damage caused to his back passage by a police truncheon, penetrating him by accident, according to the police, who investigated their own officers. The protests in the Paris suburbs this weekend showing that people don't believe their law enforcement officers. Another case in point is that of Adama Traoré, who died in police custody in July last year. During his arrest, force was used. The autopsy's contradictory on just why he died. But he's reported to have told police that he couldn't breathe as they held him down. We'll have more from our guests after some reactions from top-line politicians to the events here, the violence this weekend here in France.
I want to send a message to those who hope to abuse the situation to incite hatred. I'm specifically thinking of those who want to issue online calls for violence against policemen. I will not tolerate such behavior.
The Interior Minister there, who won't tolerate this kind of behaviour, he said. Again, reacting to the violence, reacting to the riot, not reacting to the causes behind that. Let's try and explore that with our guests. Is France at its Ferguson moment? That's the issue. Our guests are, in no order of preference, because they're all really good. Majid Mesouadine, City Councillor of Saint-Denis, member of the Front de Gauche. You know the family of Théo. You've had close contact with them. We're looking forward to hearing what you say about his situation and about what you've witnessed on the streets every day. Thank you, sir. On the other side of our studio, Pierre Gauthieron, independent photojournalist. And you've seen up close what's been happening lately, seen the behaviour of the police and captured it on your camera. We'll be seeing some of your photographs in this half of our debate. Last and definitely not least, Sophie Baudy-Gendreau, Professor of Political Science and American Studies, who's laughing at my pronunciation of her name, Director of the Centre of Urban Studies at the Sorbonne here in Paris. Sophie, thanks for being with us. Is this the issue, Sophie, that, you know, as France could be at this Ferguson moment, and maybe it's not at the Ferguson moment, maybe Magid's more equipped to tell us this. Do you feel the issue is that the authorities just do not see beyond the basic, putting a sticking plaster on a problem rather than looking at why this happens?
No, but definitely. And we saw that already in 2005. Can you imagine that during those 3 weeks of social revolt, let's say, the stock exchange kept climbing during all that time, meaning that the rest of the country did not pay much attention to those zones, actually, sensitive urban zones, they are called. And it's the same again, because now it's a campaign for elections. And before only, nobody talked at all about those issues where people want equal treatment. They want respect. This is really the main issues. But so far, we have a very specific police, which is it's a national police, accountable only to the state and not to the residents. It's absolutely, and we can talk about that later on, community policing.
That would make the problem worse, wouldn't it? Surely.
But of course not, because they would. Well, I mean, the best examples that I have seen in Northern Europe are the places where they have community policing, because they know the residents. The police chief talks to the referent adults in the morning, whereas here they certainly do not want citizens as partners. They don't want anybody to interfere in their approach because they consider themselves professionals. And they also think they are the state representatives in those areas. And that's why they are taken as targets by very young people who want confrontation by what they see as another gang invading their turf.
Sensitive urban zones, they have high unemployment, they have few opportunities. Yes. I was brought up in a sensitive urban zone, but I'm white, so I didn't feel the other important aspect in that, which is, Majid, it's racism, isn't it? Because once you add that to that already incendiary pile, boom, that's what happens, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a mix. It's a mix of young policemen who are sent into these suburbs, the youngest ones, and we have to
So they've got a lack of experience.
yes,
They go into an area where you
there's a
need
lot
experience.
of experience, and in the what we call the beau quartier, you have the more experimented policemen.
Sure.
Like in school, it's the same thing, the same problem, and we have to say something. We have to remind people that are listening and watching the show. Many people, many policemen are now voting for the far right parties.
50%.
50% of them.
police.
So just imagine you put a young, racist policeman into Saint-Denis, for example. You know that it can explode at any moment. And Sophie has just said it. We just want respect. We just want to be respected for what we are. And if the police does not respect citizens, they can't expect citizens to respect them.
Completely here.
Simple.
It's something
Yeah.
I was in Aulnay last week, and I spoke during the very the first nights of clashes with young people in Aulnay, and this is why they explain. They explain we want respect. We are afraid. And for example, the policeman who raped Theo was very known in the suburb, but young people and others people in the suburb doesn't like this policeman because it was not the first time that something happened. Teenagers explained me that last week, very hard control during the day, so it creates a very tension, a lot of tension in
Let
the
me just
suburb.
explain to people watching. We're seeing your photographs that you've taken in Aulnay-sous-Bois during this time of great tension. You mentioned that the police officer is known. Now, you can't reveal his identity because it's a sensitive investigation. But what were people saying about him? Were they saying he exhibits racist behaviour, for instance?
What people in Aulnay think about policemen?
No, about this one particular policeman who carried out the attack, allegedly.
But they are afraid and they want respect. They want an equal judgment, you know. And in this night in Aulnay, it was very interesting to see riot police who are here to protect the suburb. Doesn't know the town. I saw riot police using maps, because they didn't know where they have to go.
This is a fault of French policing, isn't it? They put,
Yes.
as Maggie was saying, as Sophie was saying,
Exactly.
putting the inexperienced guys into this place.
And this
And
is
it can be
and-
sent anywhere, and it's always the youth the youngest one are sent there, and this is also a special brigade, a special squad that has just been created by Sarkozy to replace community policing. They are called Field Security Squad, and they have a reputation of brutality, so that the anti-riot police look like angels
Yeah,
by comparison, whereas in fact many people blame the anti-riot police. So you see, there is even worse.
It's incredibly
It is
depressing to hear this
and
explanation.
They are not supervised by higher-ranked officials for lack of staff, staff numbers. So we have the worst.
So what you saw
Yeah.
on the streets, your independent photographer's eye,
Yeah.
what did it leave you thinking about the situation, Pierre?
It was a very strange atmosphere because when I arrived in Aulnay, I saw snipers and helicopters. So it creates a feeling of war
It's almost
field.
war, isn't it?
Yeah, and you are here and you are just in the suburb of
So
Paris.
it's war, and you, Majid, you're operating on a daily basis within this area. It must make you feel even more
and
disgusted.
I'm disgusted because when I cross the police, it's always in very tough moments, and I don't know how things are going to end. But one of the main problems is we have problem in the police, but the problem is also that they are protected, for example, by the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Interior. As long as Bruno Leroux and others before him and after him will behave like first policemen, first
Sure.
French policemen,
Yes.
they will feel protected in their behaviors.
Just to stop a minute here, on the wall behind you, there is a photo that Pierre took at Châtelet-les-Halles. Visitors to Paris will know Châtelet-les-Halles. It's the central area where the old market used to be many years ago. Now there's
near the cinema.
It's a bit of a shopping centre there now, and this is a place, an escalator, a staircase. Many visitors to Paris will go up, go down as they go through the centre of the city. Now, Pierre, when you saw this, tell us what was going on there in the centre of Paris.
A protest was organized in Châtelet to support Theo, and something I think it's very interesting when this movement is that young people from suburbs and other maybe more wealthy or people living in Paris were together for supporting Theo.
So this was something peaceful. It was something that was being.
It was something peaceful. The problem is that the demonstration was not declared. So in France, you have to.
You have to.
you have to
claim
permission.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay.
So policemen have a right to ask you to leave, and this is at this moment that there is clashes.
But nobody asked the police to leave when they demonstrated like a few weeks ago without any authorization.
But when you see, that's a very interesting point about the police demonstration.
Yeah.
A very interesting point. One rule for one rule for the others. When you look at the way these guys are kitted out, it looks like RoboCop, to be humoristic about it. But they're carrying weapons that can do a lot of harm, and they look like they have intent. And this, Pierre, and I know you're a fairly hard character, although you do have a very mild manner about you. You've seen stuff. You've seen how things operate. What's your first thought when you see that? Is it fear? Is it what's going to happen next? Are you worried about what might happen to people?
This picture is a very classical picture in demonstrations in France. And we already know what will happen when we arrive in a protest. We will take some pictures, and after everybody is blocked by policemen, and we have to wait 1 hour, 2 hours, and after we can go out. And it's another thing, because when you are an independent photographer covering this social subject, we are targeted by policemen. So it's very difficult for us to work efficiently.
I've known police officers, especially working as a journalist in the UK, who are very egalitarian, who aren't racist, don't come across as racist. I've also read the report that says the police in the UK are institutionally racist. I've heard Barack Obama say that the police in the US are racist, and the situation here in France is the same. So is France at the point where people are rising up and saying, enough is enough, we don't want any of this violence, any of this racism, it's finished? Is it the Ferguson moment?
No, but I want to say I think it's too partial, this debate, because now I want to point out that it is a very difficult job, having
Completely.
been with squads at night in Marseille, in Strasbourg. The young kids, as I said, look at them as gangs, spit on them, insulted them, tried to burn their cars. We remember Viry-Châtillon, where four cops were taken as targets, and the kids wanted to kill them.
Yeah.
So we have to be fair. Of course, we cannot tolerate police abuse, but on the other hand, we must say that it's very often the last institution that keeps going to those areas because the others have
The incident in Viry-Châtillon was particularly nasty, just to sort of clarify for the viewers, particularly nasty. Officers trapped in the car, firebombed, and people around just basically almost celebrating the fact
and
that they were
during
about to be
the
killed.
riots in the spring, they said, one shot, one cop. That was a slogan you would hear.
Okay,
You're right to say that, but when we condemn police brutality, it doesn't mean that we support brutality against policemen. I was one of the first to condemn when it happened in Viry-Châtillon because it's not acceptable, and I was very shocked. But the work conditions of the police and the fact that their job is a tough one cannot justify any violence
that's true.
coming from them. If they want better work conditions, they have to ask for them. They have to be on strike because they have the right to do it. But we can't accept to be the victims of their state of minds or of their reivindications. We deserve respect as any other people in this country.
Yes.
That's the point.
I think
Yeah.
another thing would destroy the truth between policemen and young people or French people in general is that policemen have to create results. They have to go if they are working. They can just come back of the police office without an arrestation, a control.
They have to kind of justify their presence,
Exactly.
justify what they're doing.
Yeah.
there's a pressure for results.
I think so.
Okay.
So
Oh yes, of course, and this is why it is also so upsetting to be stopped in church by your Christian name or your Muslim name, which means that the police know you. They don't need to see your ID because they call you by your name. But what they want to show is a logic of domination. We are the law here. You better behave.
I was,
And
stop-
that's how they
I
are
was stopped and
socialized.
searched as a child.
Yeah.
14, 15 years old. I'd be going somewhere with a rucksack on my back. I lived in a rough neighbourhood. I'd be stopped. What's in the bag? It would usually be very dirty sports kit, but
Yeah.
they go through it to check, you know. I mean, I just took that as normal. Now I realise that that is wrong and that shouldn't happen to a child, because that's what it was.
And
It's
why
wrong, you
is
know?
Front
the
was
police,
condemned for that.
the reassuring police in England, why is it respected? Because they act by consent, they are accountable to the place where they work, and they are fair. And people give legitimacy to the police if the police are acting fairly.
That's fair. That is fair, because when I then came to France, when I was slightly older as a student, I then sort
Yes.
of asked directions on the Champs-Élysées, and I was frisked by the CRS and asked for my papers, and I was up against the wall like this, and it was patting me down to see
Yes,
whether I
it's
was
unbearable.
carrying something, you know.
It's unbearable.
And that shocked me that
Yeah.
happened. But my kind of like, you know, small experiences are nothing compared to what we're seeing now, nothing compared to the reality in your neighbourhood, Majid.
Yeah, and France has been condemned, but the Cour de Cassation has condemned
And by
France
Europe.
and by Europe, and by there's a report of the United Nations about police torture. The Committee on Torture of the United
No, that was the
United
European
Nations.
Commission.
Yes.
Commission sur la torture à Luxembourg.
Oui, les Nations Unies aussi,
Oui,
le rapport
oui,
des Nations
oui,
Unies
oui,
aussi.
yes.
So, well, police, French police is frequently condemned for its violence. So we must do something.
So is this
Clearly.
something that it comes from the top down? The
Oh,
president
yes,
has to
of
change
course.
something. The
But
prime
yes,
minister has to
of
change
course.
something.
Because there was recently a trial for discrimination against the police. Can you believe that the state defended the police and saying, yes, you have discriminated since you chose this young man of African origin and not his French friend, blue, white eyes nearby. But it's normal that the police should do that. So now they are on appeal because it's unbearable to have the state defending discriminatory behavior from the police.
It's almost a cliche to say the police are racist, but what you're saying kind of backs it
Many
all
of
up
them are.
completely.
They are supported
Many
by
of
the
them
state.
Now, okay, we spoke to Eric in the first half, who sadly couldn't stay with us. He obviously defended the police point of view by saying they have to go into certain neighbourhoods. And I'll defend them by saying this, because when something goes wrong, who's you ring? You ring the police.
Yes.
So let's not be two-faced
No,
about
no,
this.
no,
You know,
and
you ring the police,
we
and
need them.
and we need them,
People
and we need them to do a
want to
really good job. But what he's saying is that you go into certain neighbourhoods, and Eric was saying the experience is that it's normally kids who aren't white who are causing the problems. I don't think that's particularly true. I think from my experience, it could be black, white, or any colour that's causing the problem. I think that's probably stands up. But is that part of the issue? I turn to you again, Majid, because of where you're from, where you live, where you work.
Well-
Is that the issue? Is it all black kids causing the problems?
Well, what I can assure is that the people that are controlled by the police, that are aimed by the police, are not white. And all the reports say that the police always controls Arabs, blacks, Roms, people, and never white people.
Okay.
So
So a control is when the police stop somebody, they ask for their identity, ask
yeah,
what
of
they're
course.
doing, they ask
And
where
once,
they're going.
twice a day, it can be 10 times a week. So that's why we call for the receipt on control. On identity
Are you
control.
seeing that too, Pierre, when you go about your business, this kind of...
Yeah, of course.
Targeting of
But
non-whites.
in the receipt, this is something that everybody in Aulnay tells me. We want a receipt. We want an attestation who prove that we have been controlled. And we can...
But it seems like a crazy state of affairs that one should accept to live that way, that you can carry a piece of paper and say, look, I've been checked by the police today. It seems almost like a police state, doesn't it?
No, but we have
need
to say
confidence.
also what the context is. They are not sent to the affluent neighborhoods where a lot of old people live because they want to stop the drug traffics. And actually, residents call because sometimes there are watchers at the foot of their building and they cannot walk out and so on, and they call the police. So the police are sent to try to stop the dealers,
Okay.
and that
But
raises a
they-
lot of anger.
So that's...
They know them. So what we can't understand is that if they control the same person, if they know that they are watching and they are dealing drugs.
But they do. But then we have to talk about the judges.
And then they don't only control dealers or they control everybody.
Yeah.
But how do you get to sort of stop this happening? What are the things you need to bring? Is it education? Is it opportunities? Is it jobs?
No, I think you start
Everybody
with the
can't be rich. That's the thing.
No,
isn't it?
you can stop
Police
it.
has
We know how it works. You have to start with the police academy,
Yeah.
where they are
Police has to
given approaches of confrontation, where law must prevail, and certainly not lessons.
What about the things to stop people
stop?
committing crime, though? You know, to give, is it about giving people opportunities and creating jobs?
Yes,
Also,
yes, but
it's
it's
part of the
also
problem.
not sending the poorest households to those massive public housing estates where they are concentrated, where because the rents may not be paid because they are so poor, the kids are often on the street and go do the shopping because there are stairs to walk because the escalators do not work anymore. And consequently, this brings a lot of tensions and opportunity for confrontation. So how do you do? First, as they did the 2 years only when they had community policing, they would ask residents to come and talk to the police academy students and tell them their perception of the police and what could be improved. Stop tutoyer, saying tu to them instead of respecting them.
I was
and so
brought up in a place that, as you're describing, and fortunately for me, I was good at football and I got educated. Two things that kept me on the straight and narrow.
But you know, Sarkozy said, this is not real police work. The cops are not there to play soccer with the kids or to be babysitters.
I think
they have them. They have to confront them.
I think he's got it wrong. Well, I need to stop you there. Thank you very much for being with us. Stay with us, of course. Our Media Watch slot is next. We've been discussing whether this is France's Ferguson moment. I don't think we're quite there, are we, in that situation, but we agree the situation is serious. Our guests, Pierre Gautreron, Sophie Bodigendro and Majid Mesouadine. And joining us now, Emma James for Media Watch. Good evening to you, Emma. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
OK. I'm sure these guys are ready to listen to what you have to say. Go ahead.
Yes, taking a look at some of the reactions in the media and online to this, Plantu, the French cartoonist, has come up with something that really is a nod to the lack of trust that exists on both sides here. You've got two drawings of a classroom, one with a police officer being trained, another with a youth from the banlieue, and that both signs say it is possible that he is nice. And that really, I think, sums up the lack of understanding between these two groups. That we have.
Understanding, lack of appreciation completely, yeah?
Exactly. Now, of course, the Théo affair was politicised very swiftly with the visit of François Hollande. This, his tweet after going to Théo's bedside, where he said that Théo had reacted with dignity and responsibility. But there's been very little subsequently. He certainly hasn't tweeted anything more, nothing about the police union's reaction, nothing either about the trouble on the streets, the riots. There's been very little. So the politicisation kind of stopped there, and now very much the focus is more on what is happening in the banlieue right now. And some people were very cynical about this right from the get-go. This Twitter user saying that President Hollande came out for the photo opportunity. Don't say it's because he cares. He's trying to contain a revolt. So are people rising up? Well, if we take a look at reporting from Mashable, they say that really people are caught between violence, the anger and resignation when it comes to police violence. They say that before this demonstration this weekend, they're talking in particular about Saturday in Bobigny, the protesters had a message that they wanted to be heard. And they quote Issa Bidar, who was one of the organisers, a student, who said, "Let us show them our true face, that we are intelligent, that we are not savages." And I think that is something that people really need to learn, certainly the police, in terms of how they are handling these situations. But obviously, as we know, anger did boil over at that protest. But people there saying that they fear the assault on Théo is just the tip of the iceberg, but for them what they hope is that because this time the victim is alive, that there is a chance for there to be justice. Now the local quotes a police source as saying that really this feels like 2005 all over again, when of course Paris was burning, 6,000 people arrested during weeks of unrest, and that was after the deaths of 2 teenagers electrocuted while trying to hide from police. It says in this article they weren't doing anything wrong, but they hid because they were frequently victims of harassment. Now what is interesting is looking back, The Guardian newspaper actually revisited the banlieue 10 years after those 2005 riots. Angelique Crucifix doing this little investigation, and as you can see from the headline, she says nothing has changed. What is interesting though, this is one of the most notorious estates that she went to visit, La Grande Borne. She says that one of the people she interviewed said people just want to be treated like normal citizens, not second-class citizens. And she points out that half of the 13,000 people who live there are living below the poverty line, and 1 in 2 children are leaving school with no qualifications. And François Hollande came to power with promising to end the ghettos, and clearly that is just another reason why his popularity is so low today.
Emma James, thank you very much indeed. Thanks to our guests for joining us. A pleasure to meet you, pleasure to talk to you, and pleasure to hear what you have to say about the situation. Let's hope things begin to improve. Emma, thanks again. And thank you for being with us for the France 24 debate. Stay with us here on France 24.